get out to celebrate a woman and her achievements. I was so honored to hear you say that you traveled the world, and when you were in Afghanistan, you saw how women were marginalized, and you appreciated what was going on in your own country. And I really want to celebrate that because, you know, a lot of people don't celebrate what they have until they lose it. You know, I was speaking today to the women who've been in the KDF forces, and she was telling me, her name is Rachel, she runs the organization of retired women from the forces, and she was telling me that, you know, recently we went to see General Tonje to thank him that women were allowed to serve and get married. So I told her, you mean you were not allowed to get married? And she goes, no. Until he changed the law, we were not allowed to get married, we were not allowed to have children. I didn't even know that that was something that happened in Kenya, that if you were a woman and you served in the forces, at that time, before General Tonje changed the rules, women were not allowed to get married. So you joined the forces, and that right to get married and have children was not yours. And then he changed that, and she was saying how they went to see him recently to say thank you. So it made me realize that change comes with effort. Change comes with time. Change comes with us joining together to look at the problems that we have in our society and come up with solutions. So for me, I believe that Health Aid Assistance International, HAAI, will do the good work that it wants to do because you've been tried and tested. You've gone around the world and you've proved yourself to your partners. You've proved that you have the passion and the determination to bring change. And it takes me back to JFK. JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So you're coming back home and you've seen the gaps in a lot of areas, and you want to bring that change to the society. And I think charity starts at home, right? And I'm sure before you ventured out, you were already doing your little thing. And that's what Wangari Maathai said, my little thing was planting trees. What's your little thing? So your little thing is touching lives in a whole lot of sexual reproductive health rights. And also you've noticed the gap in terms of sanitary towels. And you know, I look at, I mean, we got sanitary towels, it's been moving from gender to education, back to gender. It's now going to be distributed by the women reps. Elsie got 1 million. It's determined by the number of children that are registered in schools, in the primary schools, maybe from standard 5 to standard 8. Now it will probably go to junior secondary. But the budget is so limited and so discriminatory because majority of our children in community-based schools, faith-based schools, and private schools that are in informal settlements, they don't get catered for. And even within the public schools, there are children who don't have birth certificates. So they don't make the registration in terms of their quota. So the school doesn't get capitation for them because they don't have birth certificates. And then they are not counted in terms of sanitary towels. So when we provide the sanitary towels, they're left out. And then when they go to secondary, what happens? They don't stop menstruating. And their families haven't become richer. In fact, whatever gainful income the families have been taken away from them because now the kids are more expensive. As the kids are cheaper as they're younger. And then when they go now into secondary school, there's more overheads, there's more books, there's more clothing, there's a lot more. So I feel that we are a society that if we don't realize that we have to plan our economics well, you know, we have to plan our families well, because you know, when you stand here and you say we've got orphanages, all right, and we have to cater for them, let me tell you, some orphanages, our children sleep without food because we don't have enough to give them. All right, so it starts with us planning. And I remember in 1965 when Tom Boyer was asked by the BBC in an interview that's on YouTube, so what are your plans for your country now that you've become independent? And he said, we've got to plan our population. And that was in 65, when we were hardly 5 million people. We've got to plan our population because we have limited resources. Today, we have such a bulging youth, and we keep saying, oh, it's our asset. It's not our asset if we can't observe them. It's not our asset if we can't give them the same opportunities that every child deserves. Education. Every single day, children are sent home. So there's so many gaps. Now, is the government the one that's supposed to fill in all these gaps? Government makes an enabling environment. Government does projects, employs people. The government is the biggest employer in Kenya. But the thing is, when it comes to the loans and the debts we have, the government has to do what? Cut back. So who can fill in that gap? It's you and I. When I started lighting up Nairobi with the Adopt a Light project, I was just a citizen, all right? When I started employing deaf people in my factory, I was just a citizen. Joanne is just a citizen. She might one day decide to venture into politics and see if she can do it right. That's what I decided to do, get in and see if you can fix it. And you know, I get a bit irritated when people think that the solutions to Kenya's problems are Ruto. He found quite a lot of problems in that government. And he's trying to do his best. And all we do is insult from morning till evening. And yet, he is there at the helm. We can only do something good to help and support. And that's why Baba, in his wisdom, decided, you know what? Kenya is bigger than all of us. All right? I can't start looking back and thinking about 2022 when we've got a country that we need to drive in the right direction. You know, some of us take peace for granted. Peace can never be taken for granted. We are lucky that we have peace. We don't want war in our country. All right? We want peace, and we want more Joannes. We want more of you to do your thing. All right? So for me, it's change begins with you. It's not Ruto. It's the person you see in the mirror that can bring the change. You're working on mental health, and you mentioned it's a big crisis, but it's a crisis because of the state of hopelessness. And the state of hopelessness comes because we fail to plan. And you know, when we were recently touring the city with the president, touring Nairobi city, and as he was launching all the projects in Nairobi and saying, I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this, Kenyans on social media were busy saying, oh, promises, mrongo, so promises, mrongo. But you know something? You've been asking the president to deal with corruption. And I realized that he's dealing with corruption in a very strategic way. He's launching projects everywhere so that every minister has to deliver 1 billion shillings going to classrooms in Nairobi, and the schools have to be delivered. So for me, he's tackling corruption through projects. If he says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, will come a time when we don't have money to steal, because everything is committed. When we look at sanitary towels, it's a crisis. If we come up tomorrow and say we want a tax just for sanitary towels like we have a tax for housing, Kenyans will be the first to say, no, we don't want. But at the same time, they want the government to provide sanitary towels. When it goes into the national cake, we get a fraction. But if there's a tax just for sanitary towels, just to provide every woman in this country with a sanitary towel, the way men get condoms, we need to have a tax for sanitary towels, so that that tax is only for buying sanitary towels. So for me, I want to celebrate you, Joanne. I want to say that Health Aid System International will get support from my office. We will sit down and we will agree on the areas we can help. But remember, we already have a shortfall, all right? So for me personally, to get you going, because you've invited us here today, and we came. I mean, we were actually with our sister, Honorable Ilachi, because she lost her son. But we left there to come here. Why? Because we are from the tribe of women. And the tribe of women stands for each other. The tribe of women doesn't know tribe. Our tribe is women. So because we want you to shine, right? I'm going to start you off with 50,000 from me, right? Before